When they took you to the ghetto,
Yeah.
were other members of your family taken to the ghetto?
Yes, everybody was taken eventually into the ghetto because the ghetto was then surrounded with electric wires, and it became very it was electric wires. Nothing was coming in and nothing was going out.
So,
We had no radios, we had no newspapers. It became like a little uh, town by itself. We did our own. We
so your whole family
not
was,
family.
so you're the 60 people that were still,
No, 60 people, because there was a curfew. A curfew was 5 o'clock, and after 5 o'clock, nobody was walking the street. The only way we were communicating is block to block. The blocks, some smart men would dig like tunnels between the houses, so that from block to block they could communicate. But no, only blocks could, one block to the other. There were no communications. 5 o'clock curfew,
okay.
and at 7 o'clock you could go on the street. Otherwise, you could not.
Okay. What did you do during the day in the ghetto?
During the day in the ghetto, I got up and I washed, and they rationed us one slice of bread, a pot of soup, and another piece of bread for the evening, and then you went to work. Because I was very young, there were schools, but the schools were very not official schools. They were just people. I had to close my eyes because
Okay.
they hurt. The schools were not legal. There were some older people. If I was 12, 13, 14 in the ghetto, there were people that were teachers, and in those tunnels, they were teaching us from schools, from books, literature, whatever they remembered. This is our schooling.
Okay.
And now, beside that, you had to work 12 hours a day. And everybody was designated to what they could do. Since I was so young, the work I did was handstrickerij. Handstrickerij means knitting, embroidering. What can a child do? As I grew older, 13, that was my job. When the Germans and the Russians got into war, they needed muffs for their ears because they weren't used to the cold weather in Russia. You have to let me interrupt you and try to tell you that this has to be faster. Otherwise, you're going to go for hours.
I'm going to take only the parts I need.
Okay. So at that point, we were knitting mittens because the Germans were not used to the Russian cold weather. So we were knitting mittens and earmuffs and hats for them to protect against the Russian cold weather. This was after they split with the Russians.
What was Branka doing?
Branka was doing they gave them big, big balls of little scraps of just rags. And from these little rags, they were making rugs, creating rugs. They had made faces, they made, if they were creative, they made some designings. And Bronca was very creative, and she made some rugs for the floor, but some designs. And for this she got an extra piece of bread, and that extra piece of bread she kept for my mother.
Now, when did your mother start to get ill?
Bronca caught typhus in 19. This was already, we were already older. She got typhus in 1942, and we tried to through protectia. Protectia means if you knew somebody, you could get your job in the house. You didn't have to go to the factory. So we knew somebody, so he was giving her the work to the house. But actually she didn't do it because she was sick. So Bronca and I, after we did our job, we did her job. And
so she caught the typhus from Bronca.
She caught the typhus from Bronca, and she was very, very sick for 2 years. And in 1944 she died, just 2 months before the ghetto was liquidated. She died. She died.
So that would be
I
June.
remember every month the Germans would come down and say, everybody come down from your house, from your room into the yard. And from there they would pick everybody that was older. There were no more children. There were no more older people. There were no more sick people. We used to hold up our mother and pinch her cheeks to make it a little red so she should look not so sick. And it was tragic, horrible thing to live in that ghetto. There was nothing there. There was hard. If you were 1 minute after 5 on the street, you were shot because it was a curfew. You could not you could only communicate with the person next door to you. You could. It was so frightening. There is a film going around, and the name of the film is Jacob the Liar. It was a man who they took from the street to work for the Germans just one day, and he heard a radio. And he heard something, but it wasn't true. So he came back and he said that the war is, that soon there'll be no war. And he spread this. He spread it for one reason. He spread it for a reason for the people, to give them hope. But it was a lie. So later, after the war, a movie was made, and it was called Jacob the Liar. With this, he might have saved some life that some people believed so much that they kept up.
Okay, but That's a movie. Now, let's get back to your mother.
Yeah.
Your mother died in about June
No, my mother
1945.
died. No.
You said 2 months before the liquidation.
No. The war finished in May.
You said
My-
before the liquidation of you
Yeah.
went to Auschwitz.
You have to have the dates right.
Oh,
Or
wait a minute.
are you lying? The war was